Gentlemen, good to see you.
Great to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank
Hello, CPAC.
Hello,
How's it going? I'm Ed Henry. I'm a recovering mainstream media anchor. Good to see you. Now at Newsmax and Newsmax 2, we have a new streaming channel. There you are, Jeff. You can stream us at YouTube and Rumble at 6 p.m. Eastern every night. We got a show called The Briefing. And boy, are we going to get a briefing from a couple of freedom fighters today. I'm honored to kick off this panel with these freedom fighters, but also with all the patriots that are watching on Newsmax and Newsmax 2. All the patriots out there in the audience here at CPAC, we get to see you out in the hallways, and now we get to see you in the hall, kind of the forgotten men and women that Donald Trump talked about and fought for in 2016. And I suspect, gentlemen, that they're a lot of the patriots who fought to put the Republicans into the majority in the House. And when I see them in the hallway, they seem to have the same question. Congressman Perry, you first. What the heck happened?
So this is what happened. We knew it was coming. We knew we were going to take the majority. Now, some in our party thought there was going to be a big majority, but we didn't see that because we quite honestly hadn't earned it. We thought there was going to be a small majority. And the good news about that is that folks like myself as chairman of the Freedom Caucus and Russ Fulcher as a member of the Freedom Caucus knew that we were going to potentially have an outsized influence, and we prepared for it. So we went to the guy that wanted to be the speaker 6 months before that and said, things have got to change around here. The urgency in America to save the republic needs to be addressed. Our people are demanding it, and we should deliver it. And that's what the majority is all about. So we can't keep doing the same things the same way with the same people and expect a different outcome. And so we went to him and said, these are the changes we're proposing. We don't have all the good ideas. If you want to change some things, we're willing to hear that.
And Kevin McCarthy agreed to a lot of this to become speaker.
He agreed to almost all of it to become speaker. For instance, we were spending $7.2 trillion and taking in $4 trillion. We said, let's just go back to pre-COVID spending on some of these accounts and spent $7.1 trillion. They agreed. The rest of the conference actually voted for that early in the spring. We got the best border bill ever out of a Congress, out of a very HR2, a slim majority. Everything was working fine until we got to the debt ceiling impasse. And we even got our speaker in the room. Remember, Biden said there's not going to be a negotiation. You're going to pass a clean debt ceiling. We set up the plan that everybody voted on and voted for to set the conditions for success. That opened the negotiation between Kevin's folks and President Biden and Chuck Schumer. The deal was lost right then. The wheels came off. The caps were broken. The deal with us was broken. And then you saw how the rest of the year went and what finally culminated in the fall.
So let's pick up the story right there. Top line from you, and then I'll get into specific issues like the border. Congressman Fulcher, the way Congressman Perry describes it, do you agree? And then how do we fix this?
That's how it rolled out. And you ought to have to understand, too, you can make a significant argument that in a lot of ways we don't have a majority at all because there is such a broad dynamic between within the conference, right? And so when you go out and you try to run something on a partisan level, and it's something that most of us would think this is a good conservative piece of legislation, this is a good conservative effort, you get down to the votes, you don't have it at all. And so what Scott described, I think, is very, very accurate. And one thing I want to just augment that with, though, is that in the effort to put the speaker in place the first time, a number of the significant rules were changed that did give us some open field running when it comes to procedures. It was very, very important. And so that effort played out, and it turned out to be very worthwhile.
Okay, we'll get into the specifics on that. I was thinking this morning, if only we had a checklist to see what you've gotten done, and you haven't. And then I look back, and you were probably part of the September 22nd, 2022 Commitment to America, which was a modern version of the Contract with America. So, Congressman Perry, the first 4 items, if you go to speaker.gov and you Google this, an economy that's strong, a nation that's safe, a future built on freedom, still struggling there, and a government that's accountable. It looks like 0 for 4.
Well, let me just begin by saying that all sounds nice, but ladies and gentlemen, this is CPAC. You're conservatives. You're the people that will save the republic. Those aren't issues. Those aren't phrases that the Freedom Caucus use. We like to put some meat on the bones. So those are platitudes that you can either kind of win at or fail at. And most of the people in the country can't tell the difference. And that's the problem with Washington, D.C. The fight oftentimes isn't in Washington, D.C., it's with Washington, D.C. And so we encourage the Speaker to put some things on paper to really define what success is and what success isn't. But like Russ said, the conference is wide, it's broad, and folks don't want to be pinned down to something. Now, I will tell you this. There are Republicans, there are conservatives. Some Republicans are conservatives. And then you got the folks that are willing to save the republic. That's the folks that we need to be elected, regardless of whether they're from New York or from Pennsylvania or from Texas. It doesn't matter where they come from, but there are certain things that are perennial, and that is that government is too big, it's involved in our business, it's bankrupting our country, it's failing us on an international scale, and if you can't be for fixing those things, then run in the other party.
There you go.
You know, Ed, I want to expand on that just a little bit. People need to understand that there is about half of the members that we serve with fundamentally want to change the social and economic fabric of this nation. And that's why you see this open border. It's a planned strategy to flood the country with new people, new non-citizens, get them addicted to some kind of a government program, win their loyalty, change the social fabric. That's what's part of the plan to have this energy policy that is this utopian windmills and solar cells and electronic vehicles, which just frankly just is not realistic, will not work. But the thing to take away from this is just to come to the realization that there is about half the people we serve who they want to fundamentally change the things that we have grown up with. And so those platitudes that you mentioned off was never the objective of half of the members in the first place.
Well, and I specifically searched for the details, and there were 23 commitments that you signed on to. And when you search it at speaker.gov, it says, quote, "We've searched but can't find the page you're looking for," which seemed like a metaphor for where we are. So let's get specific. You talked about federal spending, and you said we sent Speaker McCarthy into this negotiation on the debt ceiling. So there hasn't been any spending cuts. No. They talked about, you talked about, he talked about cutting the 87,000 new IRS agents. We'll get to the border in a minute, which you mentioned. Why have we not cut any federal spending?
Because unfortunately, there's one party in Washington, D.C. and around the country that's literally, as Russ says it kindly, seeking the fundamental transformation of America. We don't really internalize what that means. And there's another party that doesn't necessarily seek that, but it's not really going to do much about anything to stop it. And unfortunately, there are many Republicans that want to continue the spending, and they have their project, and it's so important to them. I will tell you, as a person who wore the uniform of the United States for over 35 years, funding the military is important to me. But the military hasn't passed an audit ever. And to say that there's no waste or fraud or abuse there or some efficiencies there is insane. Yet, if you say that you want to take a look at the military and find some efficiencies there are a bunch of folks on our side of the aisle that say absolutely not. They will never vote for any of it. And as long as we keep doing that, there's always a deal to be made because they're going to vote for that. And they can always find enough Democrats to vote for all the other stuff, and they cobble that together, and then folks like me and Russ are left on the outside.
So let's talk about the border, Congressman Fulcher. You mentioned that a moment ago. Joe Biden a few weeks ago told us, I need Congress to pass a law, as you know, that by executive power, I've done all I can. The bill fails in the Senate, and now he says his staff is leaking that ahead of the State of the Union address, he may push through executive actions, including going back to some Trump border policies that he and others have called racist and all the rest of it. So did he just simply lie to us when he said Congress had to pass a law and I don't have that power? Because now they're saying he will use that power.
Ed, it's amazing to me. The first time I heard the president even acknowledge we had a border problem was like a couple of weeks ago.
True.
Okay, and so to even hear him acknowledge that, I thought was, okay, you can see a turnabout. Here's the answer to your question. We've got an election year we're in the middle of right now. November is coming closely, and they know darn good and well where the hearts and minds of the people of America are on this, has been all along. And so now it's media spin time. Come in, try to change the narrative to where, okay, it was a Republican's fault all along. Problem is, nobody buys it. And so at least that the problem is being acknowledged. But in the meantime, we've got a tragedy going on with millions of people crossing this border illegally, all of the human catastrophes that come with that, the burden on the American taxpayer, the unfairness to the immigrant, the trafficking. The previous panel talked about the terrible issues with the illicit drugs and the cartels and all that. This is a tragedy. For any of us here that it would be 50 years from now, if we're here in 50 years, and I'm not going to be one of them, but for those who are, I think you'll look back in history and say this was the worst policy that this administration has undertaken to open up the border. And frankly, I think it's been the biggest failure of Congress for not being to override that. And so we're dealing with it.
I hear you. Congressman Perry, you mentioned that there needs to be changes to military spending as much as you want to protect the country. What about foreign aid? Former President Trump will be here Saturday morning. Newsmax is going to cover that live. He'll have a speech Saturday morning ahead of the South Carolina primary. My question to you is, he has had a proposal at a recent rally saying, end foreign aid as aid, but continue it as loans only. Even Israel, an ally like that, it has to be a loan. America has to get the money back. Could you get behind that?
Well, I will tell you this. From December to January, we went from $33 to $34 trillion in debt. By May, we will be $35 trillion in debt. We aren't fixing our border. Our citizens, Russ and our bosses, can't afford their groceries, can't afford their credit card bills, education, you name it. We're elected by the citizens of the United States of America, not Ukraine, not Taiwan, not anywhere else on the planet. Now, there are friends out there, and we want to be helpful where we can. But bankrupting the country is not something I ever signed up for. I want to help my friends at home, too, but I don't move myself out of my home and leave my family destitute to do it. So we have proposed on numerous occasions, and as you know, Ed, the House actually passed a bill to help Israel that was paid for. We paid for it. That's the responsible thing to do. First of all, that should be the policy. If we're going to send any money to some other country, we got to pay for it so the American taxpayer knows what they're in for. But at a minimum, the other country has to have some skin in the game as well. And so the loan is the minimum standard. This bit where we just give billions and billions of dollars of American treasure away is unacceptable. And when we talk about Ukraine, nobody, not me, not Russ, not anybody, agrees with Vladimir Putin or what Russia has done. Not any of us. But the Biden administration or anybody else hasn't told us what the end game is.
Right,
Why are we spending all your hard-earned tax money over there? Where do we finish this thing?
Right.
Nowhere.
We haven't seen a strategy.
There is no strategy.
So go ahead, Congressman, because I want to ask, on Ukraine, there's $60 billion pending that the Senate has passed, obviously. There's a new speaker. You mentioned Speaker McCarthy. He's been gone. And we'll talk about whether anything's changed. But on Speaker Johnson, he's saying he's not going to bring up that $60 billion. Do you believe him? Are they going to hold the line on spending, or are we going to see more money to you?
Well, there's more than one question there. As far as our position, and I think where the speaker is going to be on this, until, and certainly where I'm at on this, and I think Scott is too, don't talk to us about spending any more money. Don't talk to us about sending money that we don't have to other countries until we first address the border in our own country. Yeah. To Scott's point, we don't have the money, first and foremost. We don't have the reserves. We've depleted that substantially, and there is no end game. We haven't defined what a win is. Scott pointed that out. And there's one other thing that, from a strategic standpoint, that doesn't seem to be getting addressed. Nobody wants to see Putin run across Europe. Why aren't we talking about starving him to death economically? Mm-hmm. That can be done. He's got one major source of revenue, and that's oil exports. We shut that off. We figure out how to shut those things down. We solve a lot of problems. If he doesn't have money, he can't prosecute a war. If he doesn't have money, he can't do all these other bad things. Same thing with Iran, by the way.
Right.
So
I was about to ask that.
Yeah.
Because Congressman Perry, backstage, said you wanted to talk Iran. Let's talk about it. Former President Trump, had the boot on the neck. And next thing you know, right before October 7th, Joe Biden and his team take the boot off. And what was it, $6 billion in sanctions relief.
Right.
And now they have proxies from the Houthi rebels to Hamas to the south of Israel, Hezbollah to the north. Talk about the stakes right now.
The stakes are incredibly high. Iran has been doing this since 1979. No administration, save the Trump administration, has done anything real. And if you look around, whether it's the Houthis, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Islamic Jihad, whether it's in Jordan, whether it's in Iraq, whether it's in Afghanistan, You name it in the Middle East, there is one bad actor that is perpetrating all of it, and it is Iran. And right now, this administration is enabling, encouraging, and I'll use aiding and abetting, if that language means anything to you, to allow the terrorist regime, the terrorist superstate of Iran, to acquire nuclear weapons, which they will deliver with nuclear ballistic missile capability. This
so is
must
that
stop.
treason? Are you suggesting?
Well, I would suggest this. If you look at his envoy, his special envoy, and this lady named Arian Tabatabai, who is now the chief of staff for the Special Operations Forces at DOD, who called regularly to a person at the Public Policy Institute of Iran. That this person was trained by the Quds Force, right? The IRGC, as we know them.
Revolutionary Guard.
The Revolutionary Guard Corps. She's calling in to him to get advice on which meetings she attends, which conferences she attends, and she's working in the Pentagon. And right now, it's likely that the guy that allegedly is under investigation and had his security clearance revoked is still negotiating the nuclear
State Department
arms deal. Iran is our enemy. And if you're aiding and abetting the enemy, you know what the answer to that question is.
Absolutely. Congressman Fulcher, I want to shift to the impeachment inquiry as well, which is something that a lot of people in this room, I suspect, they're watching closely. Yesterday, James Biden was on Capitol Hill, as you know, testifying. We expect Hunter Biden next week. Like a lot of these issues, people hear about hearings and depositions, but they don't feel like there's any accountability. Will there be accountability of the Biden family?
Well, I'll tell you what, the House did move forward, as you know, with the very narrow margin vote in impeachment for Secretary Mayorkas. And I don't think any of us have illusions that that's likely not to pass through the Senate. But every minute, every hour, this gets debated. This gets shown on the public stage. It raises the awareness of what is really going on here and the fact that U.S. law is being disregarded. And on a related note, because, of course, Biden is right behind that, with what Scott pointed out and the international problems we've got with Russia and Iran, don't think for a minute they're not emboldened by the fact that this president is not 100% there. They know that he is not at full mental capacity, and as a function of that, they are prosecuting their efforts as a result. And so is that why Iran is doing this? Is that why China might move into Taiwan? That has emboldened them. That has emboldened China. You notice that Putin didn't cross over and move into Ukraine with Donald Trump as president. So that's a factor in all this, too. But the impeachment, even though it may not fully come to bear, the awareness and what gets prosecuted in front of the world and the American people is good. Go ahead, Congressman.
Let me weigh in on this. The Biden family is stymieing us as much as possible, thwarting us at every effort, and you can understand that, right? They don't want to be found out what they're doing. You can see all the information that you've already seen. The evidence is pretty clear, right? You don't just make millions of dollars with nothing to sell, so on and so forth. What's frustrating beyond all get at is that the agencies, like the FBI, the Department of Justice, the IRS, are also reluctant or unwilling to give us the information so that we can either prove that the president is not selling the United States out for personal gain or that he is. Now, I don't think that we're going to get to a point, quite honestly, where we're going to be able to impeach him, especially with the thin margin that we have. But we're going to continue right up until the end of the term to bring this information out and to inform the American people. If Joe Biden wants to run for office again, have him explain this to the people that he wants to vote for him.
Real quick, and then I'll bring in Congressman Fulcher, but I want to follow up with you on the investigations. Backstage, we talked about how you've been the target of this weaponized DOJ, and you were with your father-in-law when the feds came to get your phone.
Yeah, look, it's censorship, it's intimidation. I'm not the target of any investigation. I haven't been accused of anything. But they came after me because I speak my mind and I say things that they don't want to hear, and they don't want you to be able to say or to be able to think. And so they want to make an example out of me because they're coming for you.
And this is over the election challenge from 2020.
Right. So,
but you're not the target of the criminal investigation.
Correct.
But they think there might be text messages helpful to the investigation, so they came for your phone. Is that?
I'm assuming that. I don't know. They haven't told me that, but they want the information on my phone, which, by the way, is constitutionally protected because my conversations with constituents or other lawmakers per the Constitution, Article 1, are supposed to be protected. But they want to dirty me up, and they want to create some doubt in the minds of the voters in Pennsylvania that say this guy's done something wrong. But make no doubt about it. Today it's me, maybe tomorrow it's Fulcher. The day after, it's going to be all of you, and you know it. People don't want to say anything. They're reluctant to talk to their friends and neighbors because they look at what happened to me and they say, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be out with my father-in-law and my children and have the federal government show up and say, we're taking something from
Unreal.
you.
Congressman Fulcher, former President Trump always says, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the middle.
That's right, and I think that's a big part of it. Congress technically has oversight, and I get frequently asked questions, how come you're not doing more? How come you're not doing more? Jim Jordan's doing a great job. Jim Comer's doing a great job. But I think there is a fundamental flaw in the system, because even though we technically have oversight, if we try to subpoena someone and then enforce some subpoena, it has to go through the DOJ for enforcement. That's part of the executive branch. They're just as corrupt, if not more so, than the intelligence community. So that is a fundamental flaw. That's why the more exposure we get, the more that we can go out and message the truth and at least communicate to the American people what's going on. That's one of our biggest power tools.
All right, we're almost out of time, but I think a lot of people want to hear, and I hear all the context that you're adding. Well, we sent the speaker to the negotiation, and I get that you're dealing with a Democrat president who doesn't want to cut spending, so I want to be fair about that. But we've just got a minute for each of you. What two or three things would you say we could do to fix this system so we can actually get out of debt? What do we need to do?
First of all, Republicans just need to do what they all told you were going to do, which is get government out of your life, reduce the size and scope of it and the cost of it. And that means putting votes up when we say we're cutting these programs, we're cutting these grant programs. They passed a $1.7 trillion called Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to equate to like $2.3 trillion in green energy tax credits. None of that should be happening, and every single Republican should vote to repeal it, period.
Congressman?
Sometimes that means you have to take some pretty significant measures. And if that means shut things down until we get people's attention, shut things off until we get the Senate, the White House to agree, then so be it.
Last thing, you both told me you may have some surprise picks for Donald Trump's vice president. You first, Congressman Perry. What do you think?
I want the most conservative person that will save the republic right behind Donald Trump.
Who is that?
Well, it's not some people that are currently in the race against Donald Trump. Let me just say it that way.
It sounded like Vivek is somebody you like.
I do like Vivek. I like that he understands that the government is out of control. But there are a lot of conservatives and people that believe that.
I heard the name DeSantis backstage, and I was surprised because I don't see these two men coming together.
I'd like to see them kiss and make up. I think that'd be a great pair.
All right. We'll see if they'll kiss and make up. The A-team from the Freedom Caucus. Gentlemen, thank you. You were great.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go to the right.